Carl, this is one of my favorite haunts. The coffee and pastries are excellent. You can't experience Vienna without Landmann's. It is perfect end to my walk around the Ringstrasse.
You walk this circle every morning, Sigmund?
Yeah, it inspires me to assemble the direction of my thoughts.
Indeed. In what directions are these thoughts going?
Carl, we have known each other long enough that you should know the answer.
Just like this street, sometimes thoughts run in circles. They come back to where they started or they go forward.
What are you trying to say, Carl?
Just musing, nur eine Grübelei must be my unconscious trying to say something I dreamt about that I can't remember.
Speaking of dreams, do you recall our voyage to New York with how we analyzed each other's dreams?
How could I forget? On the ship, you ruminated in your dream about snakes and horses as sexual objects. Frankly, I think it was the French onion soup giving you that gas that night.
Amusing. Funny you should remember that night's soup. Remember how you fussed my dream back then? Something about the shadow, der Schatten. I should have asked what you meant by the shadow. It sounds nefarious. You seem to be developing a new vocabulary, Carl.
Just like any living language, Sigmund, new words are constantly being added as we discover new aspects of what we study. I conceive the shadow as repressed aspects of self that we don't like. An example would be a quick temper. We repress or say we control it, but we always remain in the unconscious.
It sounds like a rehash of my id concept.
No, no, Sigmund. The shadow is much broader. Your id merely describes immediate and basic urges. These urges could be bad or good. And yes, the same mechanism is relegated to the unconscious happens, but you can see there is a qualitative difference.
But of course, we live in a society where sexuality is repressed and even thought of as evil by some religions. Come now, Carl, can't you see what is fundamental here? Human sexuality is really driving your so-called shadow. I am sure your shadow manifests itself in your dreams, while my id makes vivid appearances in my dreams.
What about your dreams, Sigmund? What is going on inside that unrepressed sleep mind? Seriously, im Ernst, tell me.
Lately, I have been having bizarre, recurring, and vivid dreams. Just last night, I found myself in a library with huge stacks of books. Suddenly, the stack before me started to teeter and slowly started to fall upon me. I was paralyzed mid-fear, desperately trying to run, but could not. As it fell, the weight of the books, the weight of the stack prevented any movement. As I lay there helpless, one of the open books started to ooze out its words like venom from a ruptured serpent.
Most fascinating. What words? Please go on.
The words, yes, they came at me as to inflict mortal wounds, but I cannot remember what those words were.
You need Hermes to intercede as the messenger delivering the contents of the unconscious to the conscious mind.
Hermes, as I recall, is also the trickster in mythology, and he often leads his victims astray. Have you succumbed to Hermes, Carl?
My Hermes is a visionary, ein Visionär, a divine messenger, the communicator, not the trickster.
But how would you then interpret this walking dream, Carl?
I would need to know those words you can't remember. The falling objects and your inability to escape, of course, is a common theme denoting fear, rejection, and frustration with some current event in your life. But the words are critical to the analysis. Snakes, of course, are symbols of the libido, but the venom, that perplexes me without knowing the words.
Yeah, this might be important. The words, that is. Maybe word association or hypnosis would help unlock them from my unconscious.
Hmm. Hmm. I don't have my word association chart here, but let us try a little informal session.
Very well. Proceed.
Okay, ideal.
Archetype,
Id.
shadowy,
Coincidence.
synchronicity,
Male.
animus,
Female.
anima.
Obviously, we do not need to continue any further. Clever you, Sigmund. I am onto your ruse with the dream. You have to read my book. You have had to have read my book, Psychology of the Unconscious, to use all these associative terms. And of course, you do not approve.
Yes, Carlo. I did read your book, and yes, I do not approve. But there is something that bothers me more. After all, we have been through together over these last 6 years, lecturing in America, me sponsoring you with the International Psychological Association. I expected you to carry on our analytical psychology movement. You have betrayed me, Carl. You betrayed our mission. Du hast unsere Mission verraten.
Our mission? You mean your mission? It's all about you, Sigmund. It's always about you. Don't you think I might have an original thought?
Original. Ha! Archetypes. Collective unconsciousness. Anima, animus. Mythology, shadow, synchronicity. Where did you come up with all this preposterous diatribe? Was it Christian fairy tales stuck in your unconscious that denies the libido? Is that what's frustrating you?
Very well, your preoccupation with the libido, or let's call it for what it is, sex. I'm sure you invented these portentous terms just to lure unsuspecting females to that famous couch of yours. Did you cure their hysteria? Did you satisfy their lust?
You should talk, Carlo. Does your wife Emma know about Sabina or Tony Wolf? No, don't worry. I won't tell, but don't lecture me about affairs.
I am faithful in spirit, but let us tone this down a bit. I apologize if I wounded your pride, but my shadow got the best of me.
Yes, let's leave superstitions to the clerics and masters. I suppose we really can't deny our early influences.
Sigmund, maybe it's time for us to part.
Yes, Carlo. Here is where we will part. With you proceeding north to Zurich and me south to the sanctuary of my office.
Auf Wiedersehen, then, Sigmund.